The big meeting room was full of aliens. Hundreds of different types sat in their special chairs, all talking at the same time. Their voices made a loud buzzing sound as machines turned their words into something others could understand. Ambassador. Valtar was very old. He had 4 arms and needed a mask to help him breathe. He stood in front of all the other aliens and waved his arms as he talked. The humans, he said in his wheezy voice, were supposed to be very tough. The old stories say they could live in places that would kill us in minutes. They came from a world so dangerous that it made them into something ... different. Many aliens made laughing sounds. A new member of the group raised a shiny arm. Those are just stories to scare children, Ambassador. No one could really live in places like that. Valtara's old eyes looked sad. He had lived for 3,000 years and seen many things. Maybe you are right. It has been over 2,000 years since anyone saw a human. We never found their homeworld, Earth. Most smart people think humans were just made-up stories. Or maybe they left our world completely. But Veltar was wrong. Very wrong. Far away in the empty space between star groups, a huge group of ships moved through the dark. These ships looked different from anything the aliens had ever seen. They had scars and marks from long, hard trips. They showed the work of people who had lived in the most dangerous places for a very long time. On the biggest ship, called the Indomitable, Commander Jinha looked at the screens showing their target. His face was marked with lines from years of being in charge in deep space. He did not show any feelings as he read the reports his scouts had been sending back for months. "They have forgotten us completely," said Lieutenant Hurren from her seat at the talking machine. Her voice had both fun and something darker in it. "The messages we caught show they think humans are just old stories. They have become soft, Commander. They do not worry about danger anymore." Jinha nodded slowly. Behind him, Chief Engineer Quan looked up from his war screens. His hands had many scars from years of fixing machines in impossible places. His fingers moved over light screens that floated in the air. "Their guards are a joke," Quan said with anger. "They have never had to fight a real enemy. 2,000 years of peace has made them weak." "Good," Jinha said quietly. "Let them think we are just stories. It will make their surprise much more ... educational." The aliens in their safe meeting room had no idea what was coming. They had forgotten the most important thing about humans: they never give up. Ever. 2,000 years ago, the galaxy had been different. Humans were part of the big group of space people, but the other aliens were scared of humans. They said humans were too violent, too wild, too ready to fight. The aliens wanted peace and quiet. They said humans were too dangerous for their perfect galaxy. So they made the humans leave. All of them. Every human ship, every human family, every human base, all sent away into the dark, empty space between galaxies. The aliens thought this would solve their problem. They thought humans would just die out there in the cold and dark. They were very wrong. Humans do not just die when things get hard. They get stronger. They learn. They change. And they remember, while the aliens lived their comfortable lives, humans were fighting to stay alive in places where nothing should be able to live. They built homes around dead stars. They learned to eat energy from black holes. They made machines that could work in the cold, empty space where even light could not travel properly, and they got angry. Not the hot, quick anger that burns out fast. The cold, patient anger that lasts forever. The kind of anger that makes plans that take hundreds of years to finish. Jinha's grandfather had been there when the humans were sent away. His father had grown up on the ships in the dark. Jinha himself had been born in the empty space between star groups, in a place so dangerous that most aliens would die just from being there, but humans had learned to call that place home. "Sir," Harin said, "we are getting close to their space. Should we start the plan?" Jinha looked at the screens showing the alien worlds ahead of them. Rich planets full of soft aliens who had never known real danger. Worlds that had grown fat and lazy while humans suffered in the dark. "Yes," he said. "Begin with the outer stations. Take the people, but leave the buildings. I want them to know something is coming, but not what." Let their fear grow. Quan smiled, but it was not a nice smile. It will be good to remind them what humans can do. For months, the human ships had been watching, learning, getting ready. They knew where every alien base was. They knew how weak the alien armies were. They knew that the galaxy had forgotten how to fight because humans were not there to make them strong. The aliens thought peace was good. They thought being safe was important. They had built a galaxy where no one had to be brave or tough or ready to fight, but they had forgotten something important. Peace only lasts when someone strong is ready to fight for it. And they had sent away the strongest fighters in the galaxy. Now those fighters were coming home. "Sir," said Haran, "all ships report ready, 200 ships all waiting for your word." Jinha looked out at the stars ahead. Somewhere out there were the worlds that had sent his people into exile. Worlds full of aliens who thought humans were just old stories told to scare children. They were about to learn that some stories are real, and some stories have teeth. Signal. "All ships," Jinha said. "It is time to come home. It is time to show them what we became while they forgot we existed." The human fleet moved forward into alien space, carrying 2,000 years of pain, anger, and the need to prove that humans never stay down. They had been sent away as violent savages. They were coming back as something much worse, humans, who had learned to be perfect at surviving the impossible. The galaxy was about to remember why they had been afraid of humans in the first place. And they were about to learn that their fear had not been nearly big enough. The first sign was not an attack. It was silence. The big watching station at the edge of space just stopped talking. For 3 days, the Galactic Defense Force thought it was broken. Old machines break sometimes, especially in the far places where pirates and thieves like to hide. Admiral Zextel took 6 ships to check what was wrong. He thought it would be easy work, just fix some broken parts and go home. But what he found changed everything. The station was still there. It looked perfect. No holes in the walls, no signs that pirates had stolen anything. But every alien who worked there was gone, all of them. Like they had just vanished into thin air. The only thing left was a message burned into the main screen. It was written in very old letters that no one could read at first. The smartest aliens in the galaxy had to work together to understand what it said. "We remember what you chose to forget." Under the words was a picture, a blue ball with land shapes on it. No one knew what world it was supposed to be. Admiral Zextel sent more ships to look around. But the same thing kept happening. Station after station, base after base, all empty and clean. The people were gone, but nothing was broken. And always the same message, like a ghost had written it. The beings who did this were like shadows. No one saw them come or go. They left no trace except for the missing people and the scary words. Jinha decided it was time to stop hiding. He stood on the big window deck of his ship, the Indomitable. He watched as his fleet came out of the fast travel zone at the edge of the Centauri system. This system had one of the big alien government worlds. 200 human ships appeared at once, dark and angry-looking. Covered in scars from battles fought in the empty places between stars, these ships looked like nothing the aliens had ever seen. They were built for war, built to survive, built by people who had lived in places where death waited around every corner. "Open all talking channels," Jinha said. "I want every ship, every station, every alien in this system to hear me." Haran's fingers moved fast on her controls. "All channels open, Commander. Everyone in the system will hear you." Jinha stepped forward. His voice would carry across space to every receiver, every radio, every communication device in the system. When he spoke, 2,000 years of anger and pain were in his words. "To the people who threw us out," he began, "to those who said, 'We were too violent, too wild, too dangerous for your perfect galaxy, we have come back. You thought we were just stories, legends told to frighten children. You were wrong.'" The silence that followed was like the quiet before a storm. Then, slowly, emergency signals started flying everywhere as every alien in the system realized their worst nightmare was real. The humans were back, but these were not the same humans who had been sent away so long ago. On the planet below, emergency meetings started immediately. General Korthak of the Defense Force stared at the screens showing the human ships. They hung in space like metal sharks, dark and threatening. "How is this possible?" he asked. "Humans have been gone for 2,000 years. These ships, they're nothing like what we have in our records." His aide, a young officer named Plix, was shaking as he read the reports. "Sir, our sensors can barely understand their technology. These ships are using power sources we don't recognize. They're faster than anything we've ever built." General Korthak felt fear growing in his chest. The old stories about humans suddenly seemed very real. "Get me the council, now." Back on the Indomitable, Quan looked up from his workstation. The screens around him showed information about every alien ship and base in the system. "Commander, they're scared. Really scared. Their military is moving around like ants when you kick their hill." Harin laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "They should be scared. They have no idea what we became out there in the dark." Jinha nodded. The empty space between galaxies had been cruel to humans, but humans are tough. Instead of dying, they had learned. They had grown stronger. They had built new technologies that used the strange energy found only in the deepest, darkest parts of space. "Sir," Harin said, "we're getting messages from all over the galaxy. The news is spreading fast. Some aliens are calling us demons. Others think we're gods come back to punish them." "Let them think what they want," Jinha said. "Fear will make them listen." The human ships did not attack. They just waited, hanging in space like a promise of violence. But that was almost worse than fighting. The aliens could see them, count them, wonder what terrible weapons they carried. On the command ship of the alien fleet, Admiral Zexthal tried to understand what he was facing. 200 ships, he said to his officers. "Only 200. We have thousands of ships in this system alone." But his words sounded weak, even to himself. There was something about the human ships that made numbers seem unimportant. They moved together like parts of one big creature. When one ship turned, they all turned. When one ship stopped, they all stopped. "Sir," his communications officer said with a shaking voice, "they're broadcasting again." Jinha's image appeared on screens all over the galaxy. His face was hard, marked by years of living in impossible places. Behind him, the bridge of his ship hummed with machines that the aliens could not understand. "We gave you what you wanted," Jinha said. "A galaxy without humans. 2,000 years of peace. 2,000 years without our violence, our chaos, our refusal to give up. How did that work out for you?" He paused, letting his words sink in. "On 1,000 worlds, billions of aliens listened in fear. You wanted us gone because you were afraid of what we might do. But you never thought about what we might become. Out there in the dark, in the cold, empty places where nothing should live, we learned things, we built things. We became things that would make your worst nightmares seem like happy dreams." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in shocked silence. The humans were back, and they were no longer the species that had been sent away. They were something new, something forged in the space between stars. Something that had learned to thrive where everything else would die. The aliens had wanted a peaceful galaxy. Now they would learn the price of that peace. They would learn what happens when you send away the strongest fighters and then face them again after they have had 2,000 years. To get ready for revenge, the return had begun. The alien military moved fast. Admiral Zexthal got promoted to the top job of all galactic forces. His new mission was simple but scary: stop the humans at any cost. He built the biggest army in galactic history. 3,000 ships from 50. Different alien races, all working together because they were scared of the same thing. Ships came from every corner of the galaxy. Big warships, fast attack ships, heavy bombers, and scout ships. In the main war room, alien commanders from many worlds sat around a huge table. Commander Talvek of the Hegemony spoke first, his voice shaking. "How do we fight myths?" he asked. "These humans, if they really are humans, have been gone for 2,000 years. What did they become out there in the dark?" Admiral Zexthal stared at the screens showing human ship positions. The intelligence reports made no sense. Human ships could travel faster than the laws of physics allowed. Their technology was hundreds of years ahead of anything in galactic databases. And most scary of all, they showed no fear in their communications. They want us to come to them, Zexthel realized suddenly. His 4 eyes went wide with understanding. Every action they have taken has been designed to make us fight them in open space, but why? Maybe they are just confident, suggested General Vaxil of the Crystal Coalition. Or maybe, said Commander Talvek slowly, they know something we do not. The answer came when the massive alien fleet jumped out of fast travel to find the human ships waiting for them. The humans were not running or hiding. They were arranged in perfect battle formation like they had been expecting this exact moment. 200 human ships faced 3,000 alien ships. By all the rules of war, the humans should have been destroyed in minutes. But something was wrong with this picture. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Jinha watched the enemy fleet arrive with satisfaction. 2,000 years of preparation had led to this moment. While the galaxy had grown soft and comfortable, humanity had evolved. They had adapted. They had become something harder and more dangerous than they had ever been before. Quan, how are our systems? Jinha called to his chief engineer. All systems perfect, Commander, Quan replied. His hands moved over controls that managed technology the galaxy had never seen. The new fusion cores are running at 110% power. Adaptive armor is fully charged and the quantum jump drives are ready for combat moves. Harun looked up from her communication station. Her eyes were bright with excitement. Sir, they are trying to block our signals. Should I show them why that will not work? Do it. What happened next would be talked about by military historians for thousands of years. Harun's fingers moved across her controls, and suddenly every ship in the enemy fleet found their own communication systems broadcasting the same message in perfect clarity. You threw us out because you feared what we might become. Your fear was right. The alien fleet commanders panicked. How had the humans taken control of their communications? How was this possible? Admiral Zexthel shouted orders. All ships attack! Fire everything! But the humans were ready. Jinha's fleet moved like one living creature. The ships performed moves that should have been impossible. They twisted through space in ways that broke the rules of physics. They coordinated attacks with perfect timing, like their minds were connected by some technology beyond understanding. The first wave of alien attacks hit empty space. The human ships had moved too fast, too precisely. They were not where the targeting computers said they should be. Then the humans fired back. Beams of energy unlike anything in galactic databases. Cut through alien ships like hot knives through soft butter. Weapons that seemed to bend space itself tore huge holes in alien battle formations. Human ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting, their armor adapting to each attack and becoming stronger. Impossible! Screamed General Vaxil as his flagship's shields failed under human fire. Their weapons are using principles we do not understand. Quan smiled grimly as he watched the battle data. Commander, their ships are using old technology, weapons that follow predictable patterns. Their shields cannot adapt to our quantum-based attacks. How many enemy ships destroyed? Jinha asked calmly. 200 and counting, Harun reported. We have lost only 3 ships, and they are already being repaired by our nano-systems. The battle was not the long fight that galactic military doctrine predicted. The humans moved through enemy formations like a sharp blade cutting through soft cloth. Their ships appeared and disappeared, striking from impossible angles, using the empty space itself as a weapon. Admiral Zexthel watched in horror as his massive fleet was torn apart. Retreat, he ordered. All ships retreat. But the humans were not done teaching their lesson. Jinha's voice cut through the chaos of the retreating fleet. His words reached every surviving alien ship. You wanted to see what we became in the dark. This is just the beginning. Human ships pursued the fleeing aliens, not to destroy them all, but to make sure they understood. Every alien who survived would carry the message back to their homeworlds. They would tell everyone what they had seen. The battle lasted less than 4 hours. When it was over, the humans had destroyed over 2,000 alien ships while losing only 12 of their own. But the real victory was not in the numbers. It was in the fear they had put into every alien heart. The survivors limped back to their worlds with a terrible message. The humans were not just back. They were better, stronger, more dangerous than anyone had imagined possible. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Jinha watched the last alien ships disappear into fast travel. His expression showed no emotion, but inside he felt satisfied. The first lesson had been taught. "Sir," Harin said, "we are receiving surrender messages from 30 different worlds. They are begging for mercy." Quan looked up from his damage reports. "Only minor repairs needed, Commander. We can continue operations immediately," Jinha nodded slowly. "Send a message to all alien worlds. Tell them this was not conquest. This was just a reminder. A reminder of what happens when you try to get rid of humans." He paused, looking out at the stars that held worlds full of aliens now learning to fear humanity again. "Tell them we are not done teaching lessons. The galaxy forgot what it means to face humans in battle. We will help them remember." The first battle was over. But the war for recognition, for respect, for humanity's rightful place in the galaxy had just begun. And the aliens were starting to understand that they had made a terrible mistake 2,000 years ago. They had not gotten rid of their problem. They had just given it time to grow stronger. The battle was over, but the fear had just begun. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In less than 4 hours, 200 human ships had destroyed the largest military force ever built. The aliens were terrified, but not just because of the defeat. It was how the humans had fought that scared them most. Emergency meetings started on every major world. The Galactic Council called sessions on 1,000 different planets. Everyone asked the same questions. What had humanity become during their long exile? How had so few ships beaten so many? And most importantly, what did the humans want now? The answer came in a message broadcast to every civilized world in the galaxy at the same time. Jinha's face appeared on screens in billions of homes, his weathered features showing the marks of someone who had survived too much, learned too much, evolved too much. "We were thrown out," he began, his voice reaching across the void to countless ears, "because you said we were too violent, too wild, too ready to fight for what we believed was right. You wanted a peaceful galaxy, free from the chaos of human nature. Congratulations, you got exactly what you asked for." Behind him, the bridge of the Indomitable hummed with activity. Harin and Quan worked at stations that glowed with technologies beyond alien understanding. The machines around them were a mix of human cleverness and the hard lessons learned in the void between stars. Systems that had been improved through 2,000 years of survival in places that would kill most civilized beings in minutes. "But here is what you never understood about humanity," Jinha continued. "We do not just survive, we adapt, we evolve. We become whatever we need to become to overcome the impossible. You wanted us gone? We use that exile to become something greater than we ever were in your comfortable civilizations." The transmission shifted to show glimpses of human colonies built in the void between galaxies. Massive space cities constructed around dead stars. Generation ships the size of small moons. Mining operations that pulled energy from black holes themselves. Humanity had not just survived their exile, they had thrived, spreading through regions of space that other species thought were completely empty and lifeless. On the alien world of Vexteria, Chancellor Morden watched the broadcast with growing horror. The images showed humans living in conditions that would kill his people instantly. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No one can survive in those places." But the proof was right there on his screen. Human children playing in the corridors of stations built inside the gravity wells of dead stars. Human families living on ships that traveled through the empty spaces where even light barely existed. Human scientists working with energies that came from the death of entire universes. "For 2,000 years we have been preparing for this moment," Jinha said. "Not planning revenge, not plotting conquest, preparing to come home to a galaxy that had forgotten the most important lesson in the universe. Never, ever underestimate human determination. The broadcast showed more images. Human ships being built in zero gravity, their hulls made from materials that did not exist in normal space. Human soldiers training in environments that would crush alien bodies in seconds. Human engineers working with machines that seemed to bend reality itself. Quan looked up from his control station, his expression serious. "Commander, we are receiving surrender offers from 47 different civilizations. They are begging for mercy, and our response?" Jinha Astaharan's smile was sharp as a blade. "Tell them mercy is something we learn to live without, but we are willing to discuss terms." On the alien capital world of Nexus Prime, President Kelthara gathered her top advisors in the deepest bunker they could find. "How do we negotiate with beings like this?" she asked. "They live in places we cannot even visit. They use technology we cannot understand. They have become something we are not prepared to face." General Yaksamer, one of the few survivors of the Great Battle, spoke with a shaking voice. "Madam President, I fought them. I saw what they can do. These are not the humans our ancestors banished. They have become something else entirely." "What do you mean?" she asked. "They move their ships like they are part of their own bodies. They communicate without using normal radio signals. Their weapons use forces we have never seen before. And most terrifying of all, they show no fear, none at all. It is like they have forgotten how to be afraid." The general paused, remembering the horror of the battle. "During the fight, I heard one of their commanders laughing while our ships were being destroyed around him. Not with cruelty, but with joy, like he was finally doing what he was born to do." Back on the Indomitable, Jinha continued his broadcast to the galaxy. "You fear our violence, our unpredictability, our refusal to accept limits. Those traits did not disappear in exile. They evolved, became refined, became something far more powerful than simple aggression." The transmission showed human children learning to navigate through folded space-time as easily as their ancestors had once walked on solid ground. It showed human adults who could survive in the vacuum of space for hours without protection. It showed human minds that could interface directly with machines, becoming one with their technology. "We learned to live in the spaces between life and death," Jinha explained. "We learned to find strength in the void itself. We learned to make the impossible into the inevitable. And we learned that when you throw humans into the darkness, they do not disappear. They become the darkness." On 1,000 worlds, aliens watched in fascinated horror as the broadcast continued. They saw humans who had evolved beyond normal biological limits. Humans whose bodies had been enhanced by technologies that merged flesh with machine. Humans whose minds had been expanded to work directly with quantum computers, but most terrifying of all, they saw humans who had kept their essential humanity while becoming something more. They still laughed, still loved, still fought for what they believed in. But now they did it with capabilities that made them seem like gods of war. "The question now," Jinha said, his voice carrying across the galaxy, "is whether you are ready to accept what we have become. You wanted us gone because we would not fit into your perfect, peaceful society, but we were never the problem. We were the solution you were too afraid to use." He paused, letting his words sink in. "We are the fire that burns in the cold void. We are the force that refuses to accept defeat. We are the will that turns impossible into inevitable. We are what happens when you take the strongest fighters in the galaxy and give them 2,000 years to become perfect at fighting." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. The humans were back, and they were no longer just another species among many. They had become something new, something forged in the space between stars, something that redefined what it meant to be alive in a hostile universe. The aliens had wanted a peaceful galaxy. Now they would learn that peace without strength is just waiting for someone stronger to take everything away. The humans had returned, and they had brought evolution with them. The talks that followed were unlike anything in galactic history. The humans did not want planets. They had claimed entire regions of space between galaxies that other species could not even reach. They did not want resources, their technology, Let them harvest energy and materials from sources that other civilizations thought were impossible to use. What they wanted was far more basic respect. Ambassador Veltar, now ancient beyond measure, served as the main negotiator for the Galactic Council. His first meeting with Commander Jinha took place on the Indomitable, in a meeting room that showed the full scope of human evolution through its very design. The walls were alive with displays showing human colonies built around black holes, cities that existed in folded space, children growing up in dimensions that other species could not even see. The air itself hummed with energy that made Veltar's sensors give warning signals. "You have changed," Veltar observed, studying Jinha with eyes that had witnessed the original human exile. "Not just in technology, fundamentally. You are not the same species we sent away," Jinha nodded slowly. "Evolution is not just about biology, Ambassador. When you forced us to survive in conditions that should have killed us, we adapted in ways that go beyond simple genetics. We became something new, something that could thrive in the spaces between spaces, live in the darkness. Between stars, find strength in the void itself." Behind them, Harin worked at a control station that connected directly to her nervous system through small devices implanted in her skull. The technology allowed humans to merge with their ships, their homes, their very environment in ways that other species found disturbing. "The question now," Jinha continued, "is whether the galaxy is ready to accept what we have become. You feared our violence, our unpredictability, our refusal to accept limits. Those traits did not disappear in exile. They evolved, became refined, became something far more powerful than simple aggression." Quan entered the meeting room, his movements carrying the smooth grace of someone whose body had been enhanced by technologies that blurred the line between flesh and machine. In his hands, he carried a device that pulsed with energies that made Veltar's sensors scream warnings. "This," Quan said, placing the device on the table, "is a quantum displacement core. It can move matter through dimensions that your physics says do not exist. We developed it by studying the structure of space-time. In regions where reality itself breaks down, it is powered by technologies that harvest energy from the decay of dead universes." Veltar stared at the device, his ancient mind struggling to process what he was hearing. Impossible! The energy requirements alone would require the power of entire star systems, would require resources that do not exist in normal space, Jinha finished. "Which is why we learned to live in abnormal space. The void between galaxies is not empty, Ambassador. It is full of things that most civilizations cannot even see, let alone use. We learn to see them, to harvest them, to become one with them." The negotiations continued for weeks, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The galaxy that had exiled humanity was gone, replaced by something softer, more comfortable, completely unprepared for the return of a species that had spent 2,000 years becoming the perfect predators of impossible spaces. During one session, Chancellor Morden of the Vextarian Republic tried to assert some authority. "You speak of respect, but you destroyed our greatest fleet. You have shown us nothing but force. How can we trust beings who solve problems with violence?" Jinha's response was quiet but carried the weight of centuries. "You trusted us enough to send us away when we became inconvenient. You trusted us enough to let us handle the problems you were too weak to solve. And when we became too good at solving those problems, you decided we were the problem." He gestured to the displays showing human achievements. "We spent 2,000 years learning to survive in places where your people would die in seconds. We built civilizations in the void itself. We tamed energies that come from the birth and death of universes. And we did it all while you lived in comfort, protected by the peace we had helped you build." Hara looked up from her station, her eyes now glowing with a faint blue light from the neural interfaces that connected her to the ship's systems. "The galaxy has been at peace for 2,000 years because there was no one left who remembered how to fight. Pirates, raiders, and small conflicts, but no real wars. No one pushing the boundaries of what was possible." "Peace is not the absence of conflict," Quan added, his voice carrying the mechanical precision of someone who had integrated technology into his very being. Peace is the presence of justice, and justice requires strength to enforce it. Veltar felt the weight of history pressing down on him. What do you want from us? What are your terms? Jinha stood and walked to the great window that showed the stars beyond. We want recognition. Not as the violent savages you remember, but as what we became. We want acknowledgement that your perfect galaxy was only possible because we were willing to do the hard work of keeping it safe. And if we refuse, then you will learn what 2,000 years of human evolution looks like when it is not held back by concern for your feelings. The threat was delivered calmly, but every alien in the room felt the power behind it. They had seen what humans could do when they were being gentle. None of them wanted to see what humans could do when they were not. Over the following months, the new order took shape. Humans did not conquer or occupy alien worlds. They did not need to. Their mere presence, their obvious superiority in every field that mattered, was enough to reshape galactic civilization. Trade routes that had been established for millennia were suddenly obsolete as humans demonstrated travel methods that cut journey times by 90%. Scientific problems that had puzzled the galaxy's greatest minds for centuries were solved by human children as basic homework exercises. Military forces that had seemed impressive became jokes when compared to human capabilities. The greatest alien battleships were outclassed by human scout vessels. The most advanced alien technologies were surpassed by tools that humans used for simple daily tasks. But most importantly, the galaxy learned that humans had not lost their essential humanity during their evolution. They still cared about justice, about protecting the weak, about building something better than what came before. They had just become infinitely better at achieving those goals. The exile was over, the myths had become reality, and the galaxy was about to learn what it truly meant to live in a universe where humans were no longer holding themselves back. The new order had begun, and it would be built on the foundation of human excellence that 2,000 years of evolution had created. 6 months after the first human ship appeared at the edge of galactic space, everything had changed. Not through conquest or force, but through the simple, undeniable reality of human superiority in every field that mattered. The Galactic Council chamber had been redesigned to fit the new reality. Where once thousands of species had gathered as equals, now they assembled under the watchful presence of humanity, not as conquerors, but as the inevitable result of their own choices made. 2,000 years ago, Jinha stood before the assembly, no longer just a military commander but the architect of a new galactic order. His words carried the weight of a species that had learned to thrive in conditions that redefined the meaning of survival itself. You wanted to know what it means to be human, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber and beyond, to every world that hung on his words. You thought it meant violence, chaos, unpredictability. You were partially right, but you missed the deeper truth. Harin, now serving as Director of Galactic Communications, monitored the broadcast as it reached billions of beings across thousands of worlds. The technology that carried his words was itself a demonstration of human evolution, quantum-linked communication networks that operated faster than light itself, spanning distances that other species considered impossible to cross. In the audience, Ambassador Veltar listened with the weight of his long years pressing down on him. He had been there when humans were exiled. He had voted for their banishment. Now he sat in a chamber where humanity's return had transformed everything he thought he knew about the universe. To be human, Jinha continued, means to never accept that something is impossible. When you told us we were too dangerous for civilized space, we did not argue. We proved you right by becoming more dangerous than you ever imagined. When you exiled us to regions where no life could survive, we did not die. We learned to live in the spaces between life and death. The audience listened in complete silence. Around the galaxy, billions of beings watched their screens as the human leader explained what his people had become. When you forgot us, dismissed us as myths, we did not fade away. We became something worthy of your legends. And when you assembled the greatest military force in galactic history to destroy us, We did not flee, we showed you what 2,000 years of human determination could accomplish. On the human home ships scattered throughout the void between galaxies, children who had never seen a planet's surface learned to navigate through folded spacetime as easily as their ancestors had once walked on solid ground. These children played games that involved manipulating the fundamental forces of reality. They solved mathematical problems that had puzzled the galaxy's greatest minds for centuries. Quan, now overseeing the integration of human technology into galactic infrastructure, worked at control stations that rewrote the basic principles of physics as other species understood them. Around him, systems hummed with the power of technologies that treated the impossible as merely another engineering challenge to overcome. "This is what it means to be human," Jinha said, his voice growing stronger. "We are the species that looks at the word impossible and sees it as a suggestion rather than a limit. We are the fire that burns in the void, the force that finds strength in weakness, the will that refuses to accept defeat even when defeat seems certain." He paused, letting his words sink in across a galaxy that was still learning to understand what they had truly unleashed when they cast humanity into the darkness on the world of Kepler Prime. President Yarthek watched the broadcast with his cabinet. 6 months ago, they had been proud members of an advanced galactic civilization. Now they felt like children watching adults work. Human engineers had solved their energy crisis in 3 days using methods that their best scientists could not even understand. Human doctors had cured diseases that had plagued their people for generations using techniques that seemed like magic. "They are not just better than us," whispered Science Minister Kelvara. "They have become something beyond what we thought was possible for any species." Back in the council chamber, Jinha's speech continued. "You thought we were myths until our armada appeared? Now you know the truth. We were never myths. We were a promise. A promise that somewhere in the darkness something was growing stronger, more determined, more human than you ever imagined possible." The displays around the chamber showed the scope of human achievement. Cities built inside the event horizons of black holes, where humans lived comfortably in conditions that would destroy matter itself. Generation ships that traveled through dimensions that other species could not even detect. Research stations that studied the birth and death of universes, harvesting energy from cosmic events that lasted only nanoseconds but contained the power of 1 billion stars. "We are humanity," Jinha declared. "We are what happens when a species refuses to accept limits. We are what you made us, and we are what you will become." In the audience, young beings from a dozen different species looked up at Jinha with something that might have been worship. They had grown up hearing stories about the mythical humans. Now they saw that the myths had been too small, too limited to capture the reality. "You cast us out because you were afraid of our potential?" Jinha said. "You were right to be afraid. But you made one crucial mistake. You thought that casting us out would make us someone else's problem. Instead, you gave us the freedom to become everything we were capable of becoming." Haren looked up from her communication controls, her enhanced eyes glowing softly as she interfaced directly with the quantum networks that now connected every civilized world. "Sir, we are receiving requests from over 300 worlds. They want to know how their people can become more like humans." Quan nodded from his engineering station. "The integration programs are ready, Commander. We can begin teaching them immediately." Jinha smiled for the first time since the return. "Began." It was not a cruel smile or a victorious smile. It was the smile of someone who had finally come home after a very long journey. "Welcome to the galaxy we built in the spaces you said could not exist," he told the assembly. "Welcome to the future you never saw coming. Welcome to what it truly means to be human." He spread his arms wide, encompassing not just the chamber but the entire galaxy beyond. "The age of limits is over. The age of human potential has begun. And for those willing to learn, for those ready to grow, for those brave enough to push beyond what they thought was possible, welcome to the family." The broadcast ended, but its impact would last forever. Across the galaxy, beings looked up at the stars and saw not distant lights, but destinations. They saw not empty space, but frontiers waiting to be explored. They saw not limits, but possibilities. Humanity had returned, and they had brought evolution with them. The galaxy would never be the same again, and in the deep void between galaxies, where humans had learned to call the impossible home, new ships were already being built. Ships that would carry the human spirit even farther into the unknown, proving once again that there was no darkness too deep, no challenge too great, no dream too impossible for beings who refused to accept the word no. The myths had become reality, and reality had become limitless.